Thank you for staying with Ktn Prime. Now, preparations for President Uhuru Kenyatta's swearing-in ceremony next Tuesday are in top gear. The military spent the day rehearsing for the big day as security was enhanced both outside and inside Kasarani Sports Complex, where the ceremony will be conducted. Our senior political affairs reporter, Chris Thairo, presents a comparison of the swearing ceremonies in 2013 and 2017.
With 6 days to go before President Uhuru Kenyatta and his deputy William Ruto are sworn in for another 5-year term, preparations for the ceremony continue to take shape at the Kasarani Sports Stadium. The Army, Navy and the Air Force will be here for the remaining days rehearsing just to ensure that every plan falls into its place. From the president's arrival to the marching and inspecting the guard of honor, security has also been beefed up inside and outside the stadium, with a special force unit in the KDF making several patrols. With the organizers planning to host 100,000 visitors, a dais which will accommodate 1,600 VVIPs was also being mounted. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs is yet to compile a list of the heads of state and government who will attend the swearing-in.
Some of you have asked about how many countries have congratulated the president on his re-election. And as of yesterday, we can confirm more than 40 countries had done so. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs will release the details in due course.
We also expect hundreds of diplomats and heads of state. So we are making all that arrangements so that we can be able to host them.
But how different will this year's swearing-in be with that of 2013? Compared to 2013, when retired President Mwai Kibaki was handing over power, this time round the Chief of Defense Forces, Samson Mwadede, will be the one handing over the instruments of power. That is the sword and a copy of the Constitution, given that President Uhuru will be serving his second term.
On that day, he will rededicate himself to the path of peace, prosperity, constitutional order, and healing.
After the Supreme Court nullified his August 8th presidential election victory, a bitter war of words ensued between the political players affiliated to Jubilee and the Chief Justice David Maraga.
Si Maraga na watu yake hao wakora hao wamesema ati basi hiyo uchaguzi ipotee. Si ndivyo wamesema? Sasa mimi sana sio rais mtarajiwa. Mimi ni rais ambao amekalia kiti.
If leaders are tired of having a strong and independent judiciary, they should call a referendum and abolish it altogether.
Wasituchezee hawa watu bana. Waamuzi wa mamilioni washinda waamuzi wa watu 5. Na tukimaliza na uchaguzi, hawa watu tutadeal na wao.
3 months later, the same court would uphold the 26th October presidential election victory of President Uhuru Kenyatta, and they are expected to be present during the swearing-in, which will be conducted by the Chief Registrar of Judiciary, Ann Amadi, before the Chief Justice or his deputy. As the countdown continues ahead of the big day for President Uhuru Kenyatta, it remains unclear what could be cooking within the circles of the NASA leadership, given that they had already threatened to swear in their leader, Raila Odinga, who has been away in the neighboring country of Tanzania since Sunday. Chris Thairo, KTN News in Nairobi.
While NASA threatens to continue with its civil disobedience, pressure is mounting for a referendum for constitutional amendments as the only remedy to address the political stalemate in the country. Will this be the game changer in Kenya's political landscape? Here's KTN's News' Duncan Khaemba with that analysis.
As the Defense Forces band.
As the yes and no contest took center stage prior to the 2010 constitutional reforms referendum, proponents for the current constitution led by then President Mwai Kibaki and Prime Minister Raila Odinga, who shared power under the Grand Coalition government, admitted the then proposed constitution wasn't perfect and promised to allow future amendments to sections that had issues upon its promulgation. 7 years later, a second push for amending the constitution has begun after the 2016 push by the then Coalition for Reforms and Democracy under the Okoa Kenya initiative failed to materialize after IEBC threw out over 1 million signatures that CORD had presented. The church, led by NCCK, is calling for imperative constitutional reforms as the only way to end the current political tug-of-war between Jubilee Party and NASA.
Amend the Constitution of Kenya 2010 to provide for an expansion of the executive, to provide for the president to appoint a prime minister and 2 deputies as part of the executive of the winning party or coalition.
Clearly, there are very fundamental issues that must be addressed if Kenya is supposed to move in the right direction.
The opposition alliance NASA is busy establishing what it calls people's assemblies in county assemblies under their command. And so far, 9 counties have approved the motions whose endgame will be a call for a referendum as well.
The people's assemblies and the motion that is being debated in different parts is supposed to bring awareness and to bring to fore the fundamental issues that we believe ought to be discussed and resolved.
Various stakeholders continue to support the NCCK call for constitutional amendments.
We have also proposed that part of government is the leader of official opposition.
Ule mwito wa kuwa na expanded government iwe ni kitu ya kufikiriwa sana. Pawe pia ni ofisi ya president, deputy president, pawe na maofisi ya prime minister, deputy prime minister. Tuwe tume-expand serikali yetu kikatiba, ndio serikali inapoundwa watu wasikie weko ndani ya serikali.
Faced with a referendum on some of these issues, Kenyans are going to make a very serious decision about a new order.
To some, it is the current worrying state of affairs that calls for the nation's soul-searching.
What may be holding now may not be able to hold in 2022. So clearly, Kenyans need to open their eyes, open their ears, and have a serious dialogue on this.
These divisions are expressions of unresolved grievances and perceptions of exclusion and denial of dignity for the opposition.
The mistake we made as a country in the 2010 Constitution was to lock out presidential candidates and their running mates not to be elected from single constituencies.
If we want to see long-term sustainability of justice, peace, and so forth, we must not bury our heads in the sand. We must look at the executive structure of this country, which has become very exclusive.
According to Article 255 of the Constitution, any proposed amendment shall be enacted in accordance with Article 256 of the Constitution, which is an amendment by parliamentary initiative, or can also be done in accordance with Article 257 of the Constitution, which is an amendment by popular initiative signed by at least 1 million registered voters. Duncan Hemba, KTN News.
The Supreme Court has until 11th December to release the detailed version of the judgment upholding President Uhuru Kenyatta's win in the controversial October 26th repeat presidential poll. So tonight, Murimi Mwangi revisits the nagging question of the political connection to the court process and explains some of the key issues in the Supreme Court verdict.
After the Supreme Court upheld the election of President Uhuru Kenyatta and his deputy William Ruto on 30th March 2013, following the first general election under the 2010 Constitution, 2 members of the inaugural Supreme Court bench, Justice Smokin Wanjala and retired Chief Justice Willy Mutunga, shared some critical lessons on presidential petitions.
In Kenya now, from my view, whichever way you decide on a presidential election petition, you will annoy half of the Kenyan people, and you will really make another half very happy.
Let's, even if you're going to change the, to amend the constitution, let's have that discussion. Do you want to take political issues that can be very, very, very controversial to the courts?
But fast forward to 4 years later, and the Chief Justice David Maraga chaired 6-judge bench, also comprising Justice Wanjala, is facing this test for the second time in just 2 months. Exciting and disappointing sections of Kenyans in near equal measure. The Monday verdict upholding President Kenyatta's win in the contentious October 26th repeat poll, already angering the opposition leader Raila Odinga's camp that abandoned the presidential race 16 days to the ballot.
We are not in any way undermining the authority of the Supreme Court, but we are saying that operating within the confines of the Constitution, we do not find it worthy to associate with ourselves the exercise that has gone on. It's a mockery of our democracy. It rolls back the many gains we have made in the electoral process.
There is no perfect election. There will always be errors in an election, but you cannot invalidate an election unless those errors and discrepancies are of such a nature as to affect the actual outcome. That is the law.
Eagerly awaited in the detailed judgment is an explanation on how the bench validated outcome of an election in which 25 constituencies did not participate over chaos following Odinga's withdrawal from the poll. Odinga's legal experts had banked on Article 138, subsection 2 of the 2010 Constitution that seemingly alluded that a presidential election has to happen in each of the 290 constituencies.
Much appreciated.
But Attorney General Professor Mugabe has recommended need for legal experts to keenly scrutinize this verdict, alongside the September 1st judgment and the 2013 decision of the top court, as part of a long-term strategy to review the presidential petition's legal framework to safeguard the bench against political manipulation.
Because quite frankly, the standards that have been used in 1 or 2 instances have fallen below international best practices.
Issues that may be now remaining are political questions, which, of course, the people who have interest in those issues might want to justify their actions through the Constitution and the laws that we have. But it is a question that probably the Court of Laws might not resolve.
Even with the presidential petition out of the picture, the political dust kicked off by the contentious repeat presidential poll, it appears, will take time to settle, even as Kenyans await the full version of the judgment. Muremi Mwangi, KTN News, in Nairobi.
So let's go back to that story that I began with at the beginning of this bulletin. Zimbabwe's President Robert Mugabe has resigned. Parliament Speaker Jacob Mudenda says a letter from Mugabe said the decision was voluntary. The surprise announcement came as lawmakers debated an impeachment motion against Mugabe in a joint sitting of Parliament. Mugabe had previously refused to resign despite last week's military takeover and days of protest. He has been in power since independence in 1980.
Notice of resignation as President of the Republic of Zimbabwe in terms of the provisions of Section 96, subsection 1 of the Constitution of Zimbabwe, Amendment number 20, 2013. Following my verbal communication with the Speaker of the National Assembly, Advocate Jacob Mudenda, at 13:53 hours, 21st November 2017, intimating my intention to resign as the President of the Republic of Zimbabwe, I, Robert Gabriel Mugabe, in terms of Section 96, subsection 1 of the Constitution of Zimbabwe, hereby formally tender my resignation as the President of the Republic of Zimbabwe with immediate effect.
Yeah, there's lots of celebration in Zimbabwe right now. Remember a couple of days ago, Mugabe gave that long speech and everyone thought he was going to resign. Oh no, he didn't, but that apparently has happened today. You're watching Ktn Prime. Let's take a short break. When we come back, we'll have the day's business news.